You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hello back, our footwear fans, our footwear family, to once again to the Shoe and Show episode, where we're covering all things on the business side of the footwear industry.
Yeah.
And something that's really unique. I mean, we've been talking a lot about sustainability for intensely for over a year now, but there's a lot of new material development that's taking place with sustainability at the heart of its DNA. So, Of course, we talked to Allbirds, who have a brand that has sustainability in their DNA, but there's more and more companies looking for products at the raw material level that they can incorporate that they know are sustainably done, right? And so we're fortunate today to have a very, very innovative product and an innovative company. Ryan Hunt, who is co-founder, I think, of Bloom Foam. And these guys are algae experts that are taking algae from ponds and lakes and making it into midsoles and foam, which is really interesting.
That's super
Ryan,
cool,
welcome.
man.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Matt, for having me today.
Absolutely. So tell us a bit about Bloom Foam, what it is, how it's different than what we see in the marketplace of regular foams that we find in midsoles. And
Sure, great, yeah. So Bloom Foam was originally created as a spin-off out of advanced biofuel research about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So for the past 9 years, we've been focused on using algae as a tool to clean the environment of air and water pollution and turn those nutrients into a biomass that we convert into plastic, into polymers, to biopolymer. And so that polymer we produce in Mississippi, and we ship it to footwear factories that turn it into midsoles and insoles, and is basically used as a sustainable ingredient in the formulations for these performance products. So we work both performance levels, lifestyle levels. We've done yoga mats, backpacks, surfboard traction pads, a wide range of different materials over the years. And the whole goal is to essentially create value to this algae. If we can prove to the industry that algae has value, it turns it from a nuisance, a problem, a liability in the environment to something that's a natural resource, something that's an opportunity for business to rally around, to use their pollution, to use the carbon, the nitrogen, the ammonia, the phosphorus, and turn that into a raw feedstock that can directly displace EVA and other petrochemical-based materials.
So, I mean, and it's a good point because you say today the traditional way we make foam is petrochemicals, and it is an intensive process of using gallons and gallons of water to get the molds right. And you guys almost, and I was talking to your team recently about this, but in essence, you guys, when they were trying to score you on Hig is like, how much water waste do you have? And one of your team members was like, we don't have any water waste. It's actually... We're
cleaning water.
We're cleaning the water back into the environment.
Yeah.
And I don't think Hig can even
conceptualize that.
We're outside the framework of the model.
You're too advanced.
Yeah.
You're too innovative.
It's a challenge.
Slow down.
It's been a big challenge for us. How do you capture, and it's not just us, if you look at Parlay, how do you capture the ability of going out and cleaning plastics out of the ocean? I mean, that's not an energy efficient process, but it's something we got to do.
Right.
So how do you valorize that? How do you provide the value and show the value to a designer that may just be looking at a composite number, a unitless value, and it's like, well, how it's much more to the picture than just the energy usage. Now, with that said, we do for Bloom we use less energy because we're displacing a petrochemical process, and the innovation that we came up with was that the algae that we use is directly utilized. There's no extraction. There's no thermochemical conversion. There's no fermentation.
So what do you go out? You go out and grab the algae. You dive in head first.
We dive in. What do you do? We send divers out with nets. No, so it's actually an interesting quick aside. So in the 2012 time frame, we realized that the feedstock supply chain just wasn't there for algae. Algae is ubiquitous. It's all over the planet. It's the fastest growing organism on Earth that uses sunlight. So we knew that the physics of it showed that this is the best raw material that we could get on Earth, right? and it's been around for 3.5 billion years. So this material is the most sustainable, the most renewable, but there's no supply chain that exists.
Right.
So we had to create this supply chain, and so the first step was we said, well, let's go to aquaculture, where they're already growing fish in a pond, and they're fertilizing it, and there's a lot of algae there. And so we developed technology that could be mobilized, could go into these remote locations, can literally use a pipe and suck algae out of the lake, filter it, separate the algae, and return clean, oxygenated water back to that ecosystem to restore balance to that ecosystem. So once we get that algae slurry out, this algae paste out, we concentrate it, we remove the water, we turn it into a dry granule, and then it gets shipped to our factory in Mississippi where we mill it, and then we compound it, which means that we basically grind it to a fine powder, and we blend it about half and half with a base polymer. So we can use an elastomer like EVA, or we could use other advanced elastomers. It just depends on the end-use application. So we're very flexible. We could even take, as an example, the sweet foam that Allbirds is using. It's made from Braskem. We've got that material. We can use that as our base resin, and then we blend algae with that. And now we're able to get a sweet foam base material that even has better properties than the sweet foam itself, because the algae is so good at what it does.
Is there certain grades of algae? Can I mine it out of my kid's fish tank that needs to be clean, or is this like there's not all algae is created equal? What am I looking at?
So this was the big
it's like a
challenge,
leather, right? Because we have grades of leather.
That's true.
Totally.
Good point. Good.
So the big challenge has been that how do you produce the algae that you want, right?
Yeah.
And most of the industry at the time, back in like the late 2000s, was trying to produce biofuels. So they wanted algae that had lots of oil. Unfortunately, that's really challenging to do at scale. What my vision back then was, well, let's see what happens if we use the algae as a tool for cleaning water.
Right.
And when you do that, you basically get a high protein material that has a decent amount of mineral in it. And that was not desirable for biofuel applications. It's not really desirable for fermentation. So this material was kind of like the leftover. Nobody really wanted. We called it the weed algae. Turns out that those conditions are occurring all over the world because of environmental pollution. Mm-hmm. And so these excess nutrient levels are present, and therefore all this algae that we find in these algae blooms, even if it's in China, Mexico, Wisconsin, it's basically the same types of algae. It's not strain specific, but these fastest growing species, they're all kind of similar. And when you grind them up and dry them out and look at what they're made out of, it doesn't matter if it's circular or if it's an oval cell. I mean, it ends up being made up of protein and minerals and the same composition. So we're actually very agnostic when it comes to the actual supply, and that allows us to be able to use algae from all over the world, from diverse feedstocks. And really, we look at two different pillars. The first pillar is, can we go out into nature and clean up a mess? Can we go identify an algae bloom that's causing environmental damage, that's causing societal issues? Can we clean that up? And if so, can we turn that into a biomass? And we have some operations that can do that. Not all of them. Some of the times we're just looking at just cleaning up a mess just to do it because we need to do it. But then on the other side of the equation, we also have the proactive approach, where we're actually growing algae on demand in an engineered system at the point source of the pollution. So going to a factory, going to a water plant, going to a power plant, going to a fish farm, and saying, okay, before you guys discharge all this nitrogen and phosphorus into the local environment, let's just bolt on a relatively small but highly efficient
giant net.
Well, this is actually, you have to grow it here. So this would be like what's called a photobioreactor.
Uh-huh.
So it's much more advanced. These are like glass tubes with algae. I mean, it looks like something in Mars. I mean, it's pretty cool looking. But you could use ponds. You could open ponds. You could do raceways. I mean, how you grow the algae is kind of up to the people, and that depends on the climate, that depends on the cost, depends on how much water they have. Based on those parameters, you can kind of say, okay, well, this is going to work. This is going to be the best solution for you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, whether the algae comes out of a photobioreactor, a pond, a lagoon, a lake, or whatever, like we really don't care.
Yeah.
As long as that algae was used to clean the environment, and that's really our mission. Is that if we can provide value to this material and provide purchase orders to these companies, which we've done, we have a whole supply chain that we're trying to build. That pull is going to encourage industry to take algae seriously and use it as a tool to clean their pollution and to generate additional revenue streams for their materials and for their company.
So, in layman's terms, how much algae do you need walk us through kind of the batch. Like, how much do you need to convert into making the polymer foam, like the additive and all that kind of stuff? Walk us through. No technical.
Right, I'll keep it real high level.
I'm not a smart guy on the technical side. I'm a right brain or left brain guy, not a right brain guy.
He doesn't even know.
I don't even know exactly.
A no brain guy.
I'm no brainer. But in layman's terms, walk us through how much do you need to make the product that customers want to buy.
So I'll give you just some real basic numbers. So our factory in Mississippi, we can do about 10 million pounds of resin a year. We can produce that. And that's the composite resin. That's half algae, half polymer. So so that consumed about 5 million pounds of algae. And that's going to, and then you have 5 million pounds of resin that we're using. So we're displacing 5 million pounds of EVA. That will make about 100 million pairs of components.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
So that's kind of the ratio. So if you look at some of these lakes, they're producing on the order of like thousands of tons, which is really it's like tens of millions of pounds of algae that's being produced. So, we really have the ability to, as we scale this, and with our business model being used as just a sustainable ingredient in a wide range of other brands' products, we could envision a future where there are hundreds of millions of pairs of insoles, midsoles, outsoles, sandals that are maybe using anywhere from 10 to as high as like 40% of our material, of our product in it. And we could service, a wide range of customers off, just this lake restoration. And then as we move forward, the long-term vision is, footwear is amazing, and there's such an impact we can make in footwear. And it kind of leads the way because people use fashion as a way to make a statement about what they believe in, the missions that they support, the causes, the passion things that they believe in. Mm-hmm. So if we can position the technology such that we can raise massive awareness on the benefits of algae, this can be just this stepping stone of being able to use algae in a much broader sense in our economy. One of the more advanced technologies is actually called hydrothermal liquefaction. So it's a process where they take the algae and they convert it into crude oil, into bio crude oil. Oh, wow. Once you get it into that phase, it basically displaces crude oil. So you're running it through our existing infrastructure, our existing refineries and hydrocrackers, et cetera, and you can actually make gasoline, you can make diesel, you can make polymers, you can make a wide range of different raw materials like what we're looking for. But that's really hard to do right now. We've got to get the algae production to scale such that makes sense. So we kind of see ourselves as kind of like a seed. We're planting the seed in the mind of the consumer, to the mind of the market. Say you should take algae seriously. A lot of the biofuel stuff has gone out of business. They've gone bankrupt. They've folded. It's been not so good in that industry. Right. And we're one of the few guys that pivoted, and we found a niche. And we've been able to stay alive this long. I mean, this is really a grad school project of mine 12 years ago. I mean, I've been working on this for 12 years. This is like
just won't die, man. It just won't
die. Let's talk a bit about performance of the algae and of your Bloom product. How does it stack up against other foams? Is it just as good? Because obviously when brands are looking to integrate that in, that's one of their first questions is, what's the durability? What's the performance?
Right. So the good news is we've been able to match or exceed the performance specs of basically all the brands. We have over 37 brands now that are customers of ours. Some of those are Adidas, so high performance applications. Some of those are Toms, maybe more mid-level or low, lifestyle applications. So some are yoga mats. So we have a range of different material properties, and we see that there are some improvements. We can increase tear strength, elongation. That we can adjust durometer with the algae, but we also see there are some compromises. As an example, compression set isn't always as good as it can be without. Now we've got some newer materials that are more advanced that use elastomers as the base resin versus just EVA, and with that we can compensate.
I see.
So it's interesting. Also with the foam, we've been able to address color. We can color and pigment the material a wide range of colors now, except for brilliant pure white. That's really still tough because there's chlorophyll in the algae. Right. Odor, we've been able to dissipate all the odor issues. So odor used to be an issue. Now we've been able to fix that. So between odor, the aesthetic, let's say aesthetics, and the functional performance, and then it comes down to cost. How do you fit into the supply chain as far as cost? And right now we are premium. I mean, it's a new technology. It's a new company. We're scaling up. Our costs are coming down, but it's going to require some scale to really get us directly competitive with EVA. Sure. But right now, since we're only used as an additive, and we have such a powerful marketing story and such a powerful mission that people believe in, the brands are willing to step behind us and support us on this global initiative.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. There's just so much out there. It's just hard for, I think, footwear folks to digest what's possible and what's not. And it just seems like this one almost seems too good to be true. I know it is true, but is there any downside? Is there like a National Algae Association? It's like, this sucks. I mean, what is like...
There is a National Algae Association, actually. I just gave a talk at that about a month ago. No, but they're champions, obviously.
Sure. And, I mean, is there any downside?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge is, algae is, when you first start with it, it's a filler, right? It's a particle. Okay, and when you put it into a polyurethane, it's going to maintain a particle. The innovation that we bring to the table with the thermoplastic approach that we do is we actually co-process the algae in a thermoplastic manner. So we use twin screw extrusion, which has heat and shear and pressure and depressurization. All this stuff happens in this barrel. It's all like our secret sauce and our proprietary technology. And during that process, we convert the algae from a filler into a thermoplastic-like filler, or more like a thermoplastic. And that is because the protein that's contained in the algae, by definition, are polymer chains of amino acids. So in any protein, any protein is that. And in fact, if you look prior to all of our petrochemical industry, go back 100 years, we were using proteins to make plastics back in the day. Henry Ford had soy-based plastics in some of his early equipment. So we're not really we're kind of, everything's
like back to basics.
We're going back to the basics, exactly. And so if you're going to do it, let's do it with a organism that is incredibly efficient, the most efficient we have access to, and that's algae.
That's cool, man.
I'm blown away.
I'm blown away.
I have a lot to think about and chew on. If they want to learn more about Bloom Foam, where do they go?
BloomFoam.com. Follow us on Instagram. Bloom Foam on Instagram.
Perfect.
That is awesome.
And I've touched and felt the products you guys are working on, and I've talked with brands that are really excited about the prospects of using more of your product. And I think you're right, because from what you're saying, you're just starting small and trying to infuse here and there and here and there, and you understand you're not. I think sometimes when you start up there, you got these purist ideas of transforming the world, and it never happens in a boom, right? It's always like these small incremental steps as you go forward. So
exactly,
good for you for taking this on and cleaning up our waterways. And I've seen you on the news.
Yeah,
there's been like a big algae bloom,
Lake Okeechobee in Florida.
Yeah. So there was a big issue, and then I guess in that terms, it starts denigrating the environment there and the wildlife.
It's a big issue. Yeah,
so you guys went down there and helped educate folks and clean up.
The red tides are really bad, and the red tides, people may not realize that, but that's an algae bloom that's occurring off the coast.
Right.
But what's fueling that algae bloom is all the fertilizer runoff and nutrient runoff that's occurring inland.
Right.
Well, that inland's all being contained within this lake called Lake Okeechobee.
Right.
And there's massive algae blooms that occur in it. So we're working with AECOM and the Army Corps of Engineers to deploy our algae harvesting technology to these locations where we can actually clean and filter that water and only return clean, oxygenated water back to the canals that lead to the coast.
So what if we require the Army to take Bloom footwear if the Army Corps is going down to clean it up?
That's a great idea, Andy. And it sounds like, I guess this is red foam. If it's red tide, it's all like automatically red, right?
That's how it works. Red Dawn. Awesome. Well, Ryan, I'm continually blown away by what you guys are doing, and I think it's wonderful. And I hope people will go and visit bloomfoam.com and learn more about what you're doing. And we look forward to seeing more of your product in the marketplace.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Fantastic.
Folks, this is Shoe and Show. We're covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, the business side of our industry. And if you would like to be a guest or you have ideas for topics that we should focus on or guests we should have on, please let us know. We're at shoeandshow.com. You can see our full catalog. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, anywhere podcasts are being played. We thank you for listening, and until next time, Shoein is out.
Shoein has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.